Abhishek Mathur, who's talking about the legal aspects of philanthropy, and we have Prabir from Waterfield Advisors, who's a wealth manager and heads their philanthropic division. So, Abhishek, you mentioned that there are some challenges which are faced. Could you highlight for us what are the common challenges?
See, challenges could be at two levels, really. One is when a person or an entity or a, say, private client, family office, whatever, when they wish to venture into philanthropic activity, one has to be very clear that philanthropic activity, as I said earlier, while tax benefits are important and should be availed of, philanthropic activity is separate from a wealth generating or a profit earning activity. And it should not be only intended really to get certain advantages through other means which are otherwise not available. So one is to keep that very clear, and the mandate has to be clean. And then there are, of course, challenges in terms of ensuring compliances with law. Because, as I said, there has been a history of really, misuse or abuse of various facilitative provisions under law. There is now a greater and greater focus on, scrutiny, regulation, and consequences that follow because of non-compliances. And therefore, there is a large laundry list of compliances, which as legal advisors, one has to be careful about. So it's not only in the setting up of the organization through which you undertake philanthropy, but also in its day-to-day activity. There are more strict accounting norms, audit policies, reporting requirements, all of that has to be taken care of. So as I said, one is the normative challenge that philanthropy must be undertaken with the focus on philanthropy and not as another means of earning a tax benefit or some other means of benefiting the founders, etc. And then the regulatory regime that has to be adhered.
Okay. Prabir, is it a misconception that philanthropy is only for the very rich? I mean, can people like me, an average person, also use parts of your strategy to sort of streamline my philanthropic goals?
Absolutely. I think that's a major misconception. In fact, according to recent reports, retail philanthropy, which is philanthropy technically below 5 crores, it can be anything, it makes up of almost 30% of all private giving in the country. What's happened over the last couple of years is tech platforms have made giving significantly easier, right? And they in fact maintain all of the due diligence and scrutiny, and they undergo all of the scrutiny that any other good NGO sort of goes through. So micro donations are now possible through one-click systems. You could be sitting, comfortably on your couch and just donate to a cause that you're interested in. However, retail philanthropy still continues to remain very disorganized, and there needs to be significantly more focus on structured philanthropy, even for smaller donors. So as you rightly said, the principles and modus operandi of larger philanthropies applies just as much to smaller donors, right? Any grant making that you do should be based on robust research and a lot of data. A really strong focus needs to be given to compliance, and there's enough of the tax resources out there. The internet is always your best friend to tell you what is legally allowed and what is not. You need to find the right kind of organizations. There's a massive philanthropic ecosystem of research agencies, NGO organizations, consultants, all of these which will help you sort of create that knowledge base even before you make your first donation. And I think much like larger philanthropists, what retail donors can also do in addition to giving money is also going beyond funding, is giving your time, using social media to create awareness, monitoring skills, doing exactly what you're doing, maybe bringing more of this conversation to the forefront. I think that itself has a greater impact.
Understood. Okay, the other thing now is, of course, you have the joy of giving, so you're doing your civic duty. But besides that, it doesn't hurt to have some tax breaks, right? So Abhishek, can you take us through, what are the benefits that you get from undertaking philanthropy?
Yeah, so see, essentially, if you look at it from tax point of view, of course, there are nuances and there are qualifications and there are requirements to be met, etc. And there are caps on what benefit, what not, all of that. But essentially, you get benefit in the nature of exemptions, certain part of your income that you have donated, may get exempted to a certain limit from while computing your total taxable income. And so this is the essential tax benefit that you get. Now, this tax benefit can be availed of at both the levels. One, the organizations or the institutions which are involved in philanthropic activities. So they have to, of course, there are certain criteria that they have to satisfy. They have to establish a charitable purpose. Then they have to also, while they can indulge in certain trade or business activities or rendering of certain services, that should not be their primary source of income. The funds that they take should be devoted towards a specified purpose, and there are various other tests. So given those tests, if they're satisfied, there are certain tax benefits that accrue to them, again, in the nature of exemption of certain incomes. So at one level, these are these organizations. At the other level, there are individual donors or any other person donating to such organization. And they also, the exemptions under ATG or various other sections under the Income Tax Act are well known. So there are certain limits, but then again, there are exemptions that you avail of, and therefore your taxable income to that extent becomes less. And those are essentially the tax advantages that one gets. So this is what the tax regime is very broad, minute at the same time, technical, what qualifies, what doesn't qualify, but essentially it is in the nature of exemption of certain incomes.
Right, but best to put it forward so, the next time somebody is looking to take up this objective, they know how to go about it the right way. Prabir, one final question for you is, for people who are trying to make this transition from, charity to philanthropy, the challenge that they might feel is that, our small contribution may not amount to much in terms of a difference on the ground. So would someone like you also act as an aggregator in identifying causes and, directing clients collectively towards those causes with the view that, collectively a difference can be made, a meaningful difference can be made?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I think the social and environmental problems of India are, or even globally, are much too large for any one individual or even an entity to solve in isolation. Right? I think the estimates that in 2025-26, we'll have a deficit of 10 lakh crore required to meet the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So obviously, collective philanthropy or collective giving is the only way for private capital to meet these goals. And that's something we understand very, very deeply at Waterfield. I think we strongly encourage our clients to collaborate and work with others, and not just other stakeholders, but also other funders, right? What collaboration does, it helps mitigate individual risks. You can work together to sort of mitigate these risks. But more than that, it allows you to leverage your capital. So every rupee that you put in, another 10 rupees can also come in from multiple other donors. I think collective philanthropy, another thing that it really does is helps you draw on the resources and skills and experiences of other individuals or collectives. Everybody brings something very different to the table, and that's what's needed to sort of have an impact at scale. And I don't think collective impact is restricted to just large philanthropy. I think, again, that's another misconception. If you just look at retail philanthropy, which has benefited significantly from collective action. An example would be the ALS campaign, the Ice Bucket Challenge, a couple of years ago. They raised around USD 115 million in 2014. To just put that figure into perspective, the ALS Association's total revenue the year before was just 23.5 million, right? And this kind of impact came not just from collective action, but from individuals significantly planning how they're going to put themselves out on social media, how they're going to collect and work with other organizations, how they're going to connect to their friends and families. So I think, and as an individual with the intent to give, if you create a plan of action, if you do the right kind of research, and you connect with other funders, every rupee you bring to the table can definitely be scaled to create significant on-ground impact.
Right. Prabir, Abhishek, thank you very much to both of you for joining in to talk about this subject, and I hope that it reaches the right audience. Thanks very much indeed. With that.